Hello, my name is Dr. Russell Killingsworth. I'm a veterinarian in Shamrock, Texas, and I've been performing conventional embryo transfer work since 1983. This is my place here in Shamrock. When I came to the practice in Shamrock in 1981, Dr. Vaughn was involved in semen collection on bulls with a custom bull stud, and at about that time when some of these purebred breeders became interested in doing embryo transfer, asked Dr. Vaughn if we could do it. Dr. Vaughn, being a bull man, didn't think it would ever last, so he wasn't going to waste time learning how to do it. So he said, "Russell, you can do it if you want to." So I went to some training at the AABP meetings. I was trained and then started doing some work. I got to watch Dr. Galen Lusk from Idaho perform a collection and transfer, and that was when I got started. And I began doing my, again, conventional collection and flushing in 1983. Since 1983, there have been 2 or 3 things that have really impacted the embryo transfer industry. One is development of better synchronization protocols for the recipients, much more efficient use of our cattle. The development of the one-step direct transfer frozen embryos makes things a lot faster, a lot smoother on collection day. But some things still the same. When we collect a donor cow and we get the embryos in a dish, it's me looking through a microscope in a dish and deciding which embryos are worthy of transfer. When we transfer those embryos into recipients, keep a record of the recipients, and then contact the owner to get pregnancy data, calving data if we can on those recips. When we collect these embryos and transfer them, there are some days that things work much better than others, and sometimes there doesn't appear to be an obvious reason why some days they don't work as well as other days. And I've known forever that when we have that embryo in a dish under the microscope, we're looking at that embryo at one snapshot in time. I get to look at it right now, and I can see if it has developed correctly up to this point, but there's no way to know if that embryo is in fact alive, healthy, continuing to grow and develop, multiply cells, and be able to establish a pregnancy. I don't have any way of knowing that. And when Dr. Wells approached me with this idea of video motion magnification, it was intriguing as far as maybe there is some objective way that we can use to evaluate these embryos rather than just depending on my ability to look in a microscope. And so as we began recording videos of these embryos, we purchased the app from MIT so that we could amplify the motion if there is any in those videos. And when we started to look, the embryos definitely began to change in those videos. And that's when Dr. Wells started spending her time looking at the videos, pausing them every 5 seconds, taking measurements of the inner cell mass, the zona, the distance from the cell mass to the zona at all 12 points around the clock face. Play the video 5 seconds, take all those measurements again. And then when we had a lot of data, but we weren't sure what it meant until we got pregnancy results back. And we saw that those with the most motion and the least motion had the lowest pregnancy rates. It was those in the middle, the more moderate Goldilocks embryos that were just right and established the highest pregnancy rates. And that really gave us a proof of concept that there is something here that can be objectively measured. But of course, there's no time for a person to do this. And so that's when we went to the engineers with the machine learning and the computer vision, the cameras, to try to get technology to help us overcome the limitations of the human eye. There are papers and studies that have shown that up to 20% of those embryos that we grade according to the IETS standards as a good, viable embryo, that up to 20% of those embryos will never establish a pregnancy. If we could objectively identify those embryos, we could stop right there at that point, not take more time, more money transferring them into more recipients, and that would it would certainly help the producer's cost with fewer recip costs, less time for me, better results overall for me, so that's going to help my business in a positive way, and I think that it could help grow this industry. Many producers have tried ET and they happen to be there on a bad day and they're not going back there again. But if we had a way to more objectively predict and identify those embryos that don't have a chance and not put those in the mix, I think they would be more comfortable with results and would even continue to do more ET work in the future. When new veterinarians, new embryologists began in the ET work, they will be able to pick up the techniques of passing catheters, massaging the uterine horns, recovering embryos, finding the embryos in the dish. They will become adept at that fairly quickly. But then when it comes to evaluation of those embryos, that's when it is much more subjective, of course, and it takes time and practice. And I think back to my initial training, it was simply pencil drawings, line drawings of these different stages of embryos. When we finally one day got to see an actual picture, photograph of an embryo, that made things so much clearer. And I can only imagine that now with these new embryologists, with the better microscope equipment, that they take a video with their camera, and then using the easy grader, it would just validate what they're learning. You know, it would help speed their learning curve a lot quicker, I think. You know, there's a few that you will see right off the bat, you have no doubt. There's some that are good, some that are bad, but there's going to be some in the middle. And having another set of eyes through the easy grader, it's like having an experienced set of eyes looking at the microscope with you and saying, yes, I think this, or no, I don't think this one will. Business, practical, day-to-day work side of it, I couldn't get caught up in what was great research work in a lab. It has to fit in my daily routine, collecting embryos, getting them found, getting them graded, getting them transferred. And so it had to be something that fit into my workflow without putting an undue burden on what I normally do. And I always have the embryos in my dish when I'm making my final evaluation. Now I can simply flip the phone down, take a 30-second video, and then within a matter of a few seconds, I get a report back on those embryos in my dish. And it's really no extra time, no significant extra time at all for the information that I gain from that report.